successful. Most of them have been like going up a stone wall. So, in conclusion, 724 opened up many doors. Now it's incumbent upon us to study the specifics of those hearing and take advantage of the doors they open. I wish I had time to cover all the aspects of 724, compile findings and discuss them with you. We need to save that for another day. Let's call this an introduction of our organization to yours and how we can work together for the future good of the Texas Hispanic cause within the means of our political ecology, within the means of our Constitution, without becoming radical. That's one of the things that I have emphasized every time I speak to the media. Please don't cite me as radical. If you see things that I say that are offensive about history, if you go look, it's because they happened. Now, at this time, I'd like to open a forum for any questions you got, any subjects. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm grateful that you invited me to speak today, and I'm grateful for your organization. Yes, sir.
The points that you touched on are very, very political, very, very serious, and they took place over generations, so obviously the solutions are going to take generations. I submit to you in this body here that there's a very good movie right now titled The Woman in Gold. Correct, The Woman in Gold. And it portrays, to me, it portrays how God helps good win in his or her mysterious ways. What I found very interesting was that in the background was I believe it's titled the American Jewish Congress. Individuals, men and women, of significant means. I submit the American Jewish Congress as an example, as a tool that has come from our Jewish brothers to address this particular issue, because they have experience, goes way back. In our particular case, many of us here are Sephardic Jews.
Or what?
Sephardic Jews. And this story is not exactly the first one of this kind. We have gone across this in Spain. We've gone across this in Mexico. It's just a different degree here in Texas. So I submit as a norm to study and emulate the American Jewish Congress. Some of us may even use the Jewish Congress to get our points across, as illustrated in The Woman in Gold. But I do recommend folks seeing that particular movie because it's so touching. A Jewish family, very affluent, all of a sudden at the mercy of Nazi Germany. And then there are survivors that came to America as they put claim on a family art picture that was made by a very famous Austrian painter, where he kind of layered the canvas with little pieces of gold as he painted the lady.
Let me ask you a question.
And oh, by the way, I was an Air Force Navy.
As you're speaking about this, let me tell you what it brings to mind.
What was that?
As you were speaking of that, let me tell you what it brought to mind.
What was that?
Do you suppose the political rhetoric we heard in the campaign of our president-elect would facilitate that? How do you take that?
It all depends on us. All of this takes energy.
Time.
All of this takes youth.
Right.
It will be when the families decide that it's worth the investment of a son or a daughter to look into this. And so basically what I'm saying that, yes, our new president, which I will, like you will, since we have vowed, we have pledged allegiance to the Constitution, we will support it. But he's only a man. And a man cannot go up against the youth of our bloodline.
You know, if you look at Spain geographically,
Do what?
if you look at Spain geographically,
Yes.
you can see the influence from all these surrounding countries of it, to include Africa.
Oh, yes.
So you know there's Arab influence. There's a lot of influence in Spain.
Oh, yes.
And certainly Jewish.
Well, that's what the
And,
lost tribe of Gad went.
You know, my wife is frequently accusing me of being Jewish. She said, not only because of your nose, but the way you act. And it has to do with being conservative. But that's a plus in some households. You know, and others maybe not. But nonetheless, yes, you're correct. There is a lot of Jewish influence in the Spanish race. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I just maybe a question is maybe a comment. If we pursue this, I guess, the judicial event that we've talked about here, at what point do we as Hispanics, who have a pretty high percentage of DNA that is Native American, then
Right, that's right.
start fighting the battle amongst ourselves, you know, in trying to be fair to the Native Americans who were here before any of the Hispanics
Oh, sure.
came?
No
You see,
question.
so when does it ever end? I mean, how far back do we go? And then what proportionality of allegiance are we going to have to one entity or the other?
That's a good question. Let me give you the best answer I have, and I'm not sure it's the only answer, but there was a time when the nomadic tribes had to be faced by people who were principally established or would establish a civilian system of government. From that comes private property ownership. Now, once you cross that threshold of private property, then when somebody takes it from you, would it be a little different? Sure it would. Okay. What was taken from us from the grants, that was private property. You know, people often think grants. No. That was just like having somebody come in and move me out from my house today. That was the private property of a family. And how was it that the family got together? Well, the tradition was the family unit. Families would stay together for generations at hand off. So the difference is that the livelihood comes from a very small piece of property by comparison to what the Indians did. Now, is it fair? No. But some of the reservations had subsistence for them. They gave them government subsistence, although they moved to the reservation, but they gave them government subsistence. Did we ever get government subsistence when we were thrown out? No. Nobody cared if we lived or died. There's a world of difference. Now, right or wrong, it's wrong to persecute any group of people, in my opinion. So if we did that to the Indians, we owe them something beyond just put them in a reservation. Well, recently, in other years, they were given an opportunity to go to school. Okay. The big problem with that was their traditions, their society, their customs. Man, it went totally against their customs. So our customs were similar to Anglo country customs, except that the language was different. But very similar, the organization was a civil government. So the only difference that I see is that a civilized form of government had a means to establish a means for private property. Well, back in those days they didn't. But you know, even they would fight among themselves in the tribes over whose land was what. So even they had a means to defend what they considered some of their home ground. It's a great question. It's a tough one to answer. If you got a better answer, I need to hear it. Okay. Any other questions? Folks, thank you.
I was kind of wondering, since you've done so much research on your family land grants, could you elaborate how your family lost all that land?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. You know, if I was, the biggest problem is, and this is why it was so tough yesterday when I was talking to journalists, to feel like that's my property.
Yeah.
Okay? It wasn't. After hundreds of years, it wasn't. But let me give you just a real quickie. When the Anglo folks moved in, one of my ancestors, Blas Maria de la Garza Falcon, number 7. Okay? There were a bunch of Blases. He was number 7. He was granted 22,000, I think it was 650 acres in what is now Bishop, there, the vicinity of Bishop, between Bishop and Corpus. He became friends with an Anglo that created a trading post, Henry Kinney. Henry Kinney, now recognized as the father of Corpus Christi, leased some land from Blas to graze his, Henry Kinney's cattle. When Blas signed the lease, he thought he was signing authority for a lease, an agreement. He wasn't. Kenny shanghaied him, and he had something in there that had to do with transfer of the farm, of the ranch, all of it. So he did it innocently enough, and Kenny did it fraudulently enough. So Kenny filed a case in court. I think it was 1855 or 1858, 54. Well, a jury of Kenny's peers, white, how do you think they would rule? Against Blas or against Kenny? Give me a show of hands. I'd like to know. Unless if you know the answer, don't put your hand up. Those that don't know the answer, tell me. How many believe the jury of whites would rule for Kenny? Raise your hands. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. They didn't. They ruled for Blas. That shocked the hell out of me. So I'm going back and I'm saying, why? So I went back and did some more research. Kenny had sold some land to some Anglos, lots. He had broken it down in lots and sold it so that they could establish the community of Corpus Christi. Those people came in, built houses, and then the real owner of the land showed up and made them buy it again. Those were the people that formed the jury. Okay? There's no way Kenny could have won that case, not by a jury. So that was a humongous exception. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. But I have the case. That's case number 1. You're asking what happened to my ancestors' land, okay? Part of the testimony in that case was that Kenny had told Blas that if he didn't sign that ranch over to him, he was going to get killed. He was going to die. We were going to kill him. After that case, when the court ruled in favor of Blas, Falcon Ranch, Chipitin, Blas went to Nieve, across the river. Basically, I guess for protection, I don't know, I wasn't there, so it's hard. I'm filling in blanks. There was a man that crossed the river, shot Blas in his house, killed him. Crossed the river, no more happened. The death certificate clearly states that he died as a result of a gunshot wound in his house. Okay, a few years later, his brother acquired the land, bought some of it. Laureano, my great-grandfather 4 generations ago. 2 years after he did that, he was mysteriously buried. While the whole family was in Matamoros, I think, attending a wedding. He died mysteriously, he was buried. And I think about 4, 5, 6 years later, I can't remember when, the family came and disinterred the body, digging to the family cemetery in Matamoros, and they discovered a huge crushed skull. They turned this information into a justice of the peace named Smythe. There was an investigation supposedly ensued, and this was chronicled by the Galveston Daily News. And it goes on to say a whole bunch of other things about what Kinney and what Kennedy had said about putting a fence together that crossed the Chippewa straight over and connected with the King Ranch fence, his old buddy. So I started looking for this investigation. I got letters from the city of Corpus Christi, I got letters from the county, no record. Okay. Now what I want to do, if God permits it, go disinter the body and do a DNA, be sure we are able to connect with it. But he was also murdered. Now when the principal person that provides the capital formation disappears from an organization or a business, what happens? Just about gone. I mean, it makes the business struggle. Back in those days, when it broke up the ranch into little pieces, 200 or 300 acres, was that enough to make a living in South Texas? No. So they all had to sell it. And guess what? It was a distressed sale. So what did it sell for? Penny an acre. Because of the two murders. Now, after the second murder, one of the people that turns up very prominent in the history of how the state got established also filed a case against Cesario Falcon, the son, my great-grandfather's son-in-law, because he married his first cousin. Probably to keep the land, I guess. I don't know. This happened before that murder. He was sued by a very prominent attorney. Again, the jury ruled in favor of the Falcon estate. Again, because it connected Henry Kinney to it.
Listen.
But once the capital formation was gone, the land broke up into pieces. It was sold, and there was no more head. There was no more capital that could have kept the ranch going. But there was no sign, especially from my grandfather who was acquiring land in other land grants, that he had any intentions of leaving. So when he was murdered for the land. When you look at the land out how it lies, it's very high, rich in grass, very prominent grazing land. So those huge ranches, they would have wanted. That's how it got lost. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to comment to the man that other land grants were lost for other reasons, not just the murders of the people, the men that held the land grants, but also it was adverse possession if they could. It was taxes that weren't paid. In one case, there was a survey. They said that individuals did not pay $47, so they take the land, and when they go and investigate that, they said, "Oh, we sold it yesterday." Well, who did you sell it to? Oh, did you sell it to your family member? No, we didn't sell it to the family member. This was a share. It's abundant. We sold it to my brother-in-law. That was a family member. And by the next day that they went to see about that case, they had sold it again to somebody else within days. And really, when you get something like adverse possession for money and it's owed, you're supposed to wait so long before you sell. But they had sold it within a day's time and again within another day.
Mary Alice is one of our board members. Any other questions? Folks, I got to run off to another meeting, believe it or not. Once again, I can't thank you enough. May God bless all of you. I wish I could see you when you come. If you do come to our meeting, please come up. Let me know that you're there. I'd be ever grateful. Mary, again, God bless you.
They didn't take it away.
Ready?
We'll pose for Al. And then,
Gotcha.
Thank you,
Very
sir.
good.
here's the copy.
Do they give all the land?
Okay, that's it.
And then they got